The following podcast is taken from a live broadcast on Inspire FM.
Any health advice given, whether general, diet, physical or spiritual, is general only and must be verified by your doctor. If you need medical advice, please consult a doctor.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the latest edition of the Health and Fitness Show. I'm your host for today, Suliman Rafiq, and we are broadcasting live from the studios of Inspire FM on Thursday, the 16th of May 2019, reaching listeners in Luton and surrounding areas on 105.1 FM, as well as the Inspire FM website. If you are listening to this show on Sunday or any other Thursday, then it is a repeat. If you prefer to watch as well as listen, you can view us on the Inspire FM Facebook page. All you have to do is click on the live link. Don't forget, guys, this is your show, so why not get involved? And you can do so by text or WhatsApp on 0777 948 1822. As part of Mental Health Awareness Week, today's topic is regarding body image, and we have a range of expert guests, including my good friend in the studio, Jolel. Assalamu alaikum, Jolel. How are you?
Walaikum salam. I'm very well.
Fantastic. How's Ramadan going for you?
Yes, well, it's almost one third of it done.
One month?
Oh no, 1/3 of it.
1/3. You're as tired
I wish
as
it was
I am.
1 month. Yes, yes.
I think we need to keep each other motivated today, yeah?
Yes.
Keep each other awake.
To the end.
Yeah. All the way to the end. So as I say, today's topic is body image. Why is that important for all of our listeners? A recent survey published, in fact, this week found over 1/3 of UK adults have felt anxious or depressed because of concerns about their body image. Furthermore, almost 1 in 5 UK adults have felt disgusted because of their body image, and 1 in 5 said they had felt shame because of their body image in the last year. And the survey found that body image issues can also affect large numbers of men, with 1/4 of men saying that they have felt depressed because of concerns about their body image. Almost 1/3 of British teenagers feel ashamed of their body image, with imagery of idolized bodies driving their insecurities. However, this isn't exclusive to young people. Interestingly, it was clear from the survey that body image affects people throughout their lives. 1 in 5 people aged 55 and above have said that they have felt anxious because of their body image. So the charity is now demanding reform in relation to social media and advertising that is linked to worry about body image. They are also providing advice about how people can take individual action to protect themselves. So as I say, this is a live show, and the reason it's live is to allow you to get in touch, and you can do this by text or WhatsApp on 0777 948 1822. That number again, 0777 948 1822. And I really appreciate anyone getting in touch, just so we can be reassured there's people out there, and you're finding the topic interesting and engaging. So as I say, I'm delighted to have 3 expert guests. I'll start on the phone, and we should have Claire from a local charity. Claire, are you there?
Hello there.
Hi there, Claire. Could you just introduce yourself and a bit about your organisation?
Yes, certainly. My name's Claire, and I'm founder and service director for Careline, an established eating disorder charity based in Luton. It's our 25th anniversary this year, and we work with all those living with eating disorders within the Luton and Bedfordshire area.
Fantastic. 25 years this year.
25 years and I feel old.
Congratulations. It's quite a milestone.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And we should also have Ed from the Mental Health Foundation. Ed, could you introduce yourself and a bit of background around your organisation?
Yeah, hi, my name's Ed Davey. I'm the Communities Lead at the Mental Health Foundation, which is a UK-wide charity, and our focus is on preventing mental illness and helping people to improve their mental health. And it's actually our 70th birthday this year, so 25 years is fantastic. We've made it slightly longer than that. So
just showing off there, Ed.
Yeah.
Fantastic. It's great to see that these services are kind of so cemented in the local area. And finally, we're delighted to say friend of the program, friend of the station, Jolel. Could you introduce yourself and your organisation?
Yes, I'm from Our Minds Matter and Time to Change. We're not as, I think we're the younger versions of the mental health organisations, but it shows you basically how much work we've got to do. I mean, our Pacific Charity is looking at how we can provide that education, particularly to faith communities and those who face the discrimination the most.
Fantastic. So hopefully between us all, we've come together to, as I say, as part of Mental Health Awareness Week, focus in on the concerns around body image. Before we get on to the specifics around body image, Ed, could I come to you around, can you just articulate some basic definitions when we're talking about mental health?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's quite a hard thing to actually define, but I mean, I think the most useful way to try and think about it is it's a bit like physical health, and it's connected very very closely with physical health. And because quite often the conversation about mental health quickly descends into a conversation about mental illness. And actually, mental health, we all have mental health, just as we all have physical health. And sometimes we enjoy good physical and mental health, and sometimes our mental or physical health is less good. And there are things that we can do to look after our mental health just as we can do to look after our physical health. And, we're all born with a greater or lesser likelihood of developing a mental ill health, just as we are a physical ill health, through the genes that we inherit from our parents. But regardless of our risk factor from our genes, there are things that we can all do to look after our own mental and physical health and those around us. Just things like keeping active, eating well, drinking sensibly, staying in touch, looking after ourselves in various ways are things that we can do to keep our mental fitness right, just as we would try and look after our physical fitness. But obviously it's a spectrum, and as I say, sometimes people tip over into stress, into de-stress, which can turn into a diagnosable mental illness, and then they may need the support of formal services through their doctor, and then maybe through specialist health services. But as I say, all of us have mental health. We're all on a spectrum. We all need to do things to look after our mental health just as we do our physical health.
Great. And so my understanding is the Mental Health Foundation that are coordinating, hosting the Mental Health Awareness Week. What exactly is the Mental Health Awareness Week?
So, yeah, we began Mental Health Awareness Week, I believe it was 2003, certainly quite a number of years ago now, because what we found is that whilst, as I say, I made the comparison and the link with physical health, while there was quite a lot of awareness about physical health and the things that you can do to look after your physical health, like not smoking and eating certain foods and not drinking alcohol and exercising and those kinds of things, we found there was very low awareness of mental health and mental illness. And also, not just low awareness, but actual kind of stigma, discrimination, and in certain communities, it was associated with some real misconceptions about what it was about, and people didn't like to talk about it. So we wanted to raise people's awareness of mental health in general, and the positive messages about what we can do to look after our mental health and of those around us. So we began that in 2003. And since then, it's had a huge impact. Before, there was very little awareness. People didn't like to talk about it. It was a taboo subject. And now we've got millions and millions of people interacting, not just in this week, but throughout the year. We've got the royal family engaged in it and talking about their experience of mental ill health, like Prince Harry, for example, talking about how the bereavement around his mother's death affected him. And all of that's really powerful because it sends a message to everybody that anybody, from royalty down and up can experience mental illness, and it's nothing to be ashamed of, and that help is available if someone is unwell. So we're really proud of the fact that we've played some role in raising mental health up the political agenda. And now we have this moment, there's been a lot of public health campaigns, and we know that when a public health issue is in the spotlight, like smoking has been in the past, or getting people to wear seat belts, you've got about 5 years to make a difference. And so we're in the midst of that 5 years now. We really need to make progress and turn all the talk and awareness into actual action that will improve people's health and make sure the services are there for people when they are unwell.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was fascinating to see last night the program with on BBC One with Nadia, who was went to school in Luton, so is Lutonian, and it was really very, very powerful as part of a wide range of media that's happening around Mental Health Awareness Week.
Absolutely. And as part of that series, the actor David Harewood is on tonight talking about his experience of psychosis, and I actually went to the premiere of it last week and had a sneak preview, and it's an amazingly powerful film because people have started talking more about depression and anxiety and what are called the common mental illnesses, but it's very rare you hear someone be so open about a serious mental illness, about psychosis, and I think that's a measure of how far we have come, that we can now have a major celebrity, David Harewood, in a lot of major TV programs, talking really openly about that experience. And also, ethnicity is quite a strong factor in mental health. And David is a black guy from Afro-Caribbean background, and Nadia obviously is from an Asian background. And I think that's really powerful as well to connect with those particular communities who have specific issues around mental health that we really need to be brave and confront and talk about. So it's amazing and brilliant.
Absolutely. And that kind of brings us nicely on in terms of locally, Jolel, the work that you're involved with the Time for Change partnership. What have you been doing around Mental Health Awareness Week?
I think we've been in the mall, so on the ground, and we're approaching the public. And we're saying, look, not one expert is enough. You've got so many different people who can add to the conversation. And so what we're trying to do, we're trying to promote all the other organisations to say, look, it's not just my job or your job. It's actually everyone's responsibility. So therefore we invite partners to say, look, come and show and not sell your service, but show them what you can do. Because people have different needs. Just like the physical body, you're going to have different needs for your mental health as well as your physical health. So we've been in the mall promoting different services and also having a discussion on body image.
Just before I come on to Claire, Ed, can I just ask in relation to why is it that body image has been the focus of the campaign this year, and why is it that it feels as though it's becoming such a big issue at the moment?
Well, last year our focus was on stress.
Right.
In quite a general way. So every year we do a big survey. We survey over 4,000 people across the UK. So it's a really big sample. So it gets a very accurate picture of what people are thinking about and concerned about. And last year we had this general survey about stress. And what was interesting in that is that the concerns about body image came out as quite a major factor in creating stress in people's lives. So we thought that would be an interesting thing to look at in more detail in this year's survey and have it as a theme for this year's Mental Health Awareness Week. And then interestingly, during the year, there was the TV program Love Island, which I haven't watched myself, but and in it there were some adverts for cosmetic surgery, and we, as an organisation, actually complained to the Advertising Standards Authority and had those adverts removed and sort of strengthened the rules around what could be advertised with certain programs, because what we were finding was that this was really triggering for people that on Love Island, as I understand it, is people sitting around in bathing costumes looking in a particular kind of a way of looking beautiful in certain people's understandings. And then the viewers were comparing themselves with these kind of almost unobtainable bodies they were seeing on the telly, and then being it was suggested to them that they should get really expensive, surgery, which we felt was really inappropriate, and the Advertising Standards Agency agreed with us. And that kind of stuff, television programs, social media, where you're seeing celebrities and models and others with quite often unobtainable, unrealistic, even photoshopped body images, and then people are comparing themselves, particularly, not exclusively, but young women and girls is a particular issue for, but other people as well, and that makes people feel really uncomfortable. It can make them feel disgusted with their own body. It can make them feel really anxious and stressed, and in some cases they don't want to even go out, or they resort to something really drastic like cosmetic surgery, which doesn't make most people happy. So we felt it was a growing issue. It was certainly reflected in our survey last year, and our survey this year that was specifically about body image certainly bore that out, and that about a fifth of people in the UK have real problems and issues around body image in their mental health. So I think, and then we've had, amazing amount of response this week. It's our biggest ever response. We've had millions and millions of interactions with people through television programs, radio shows like yourself, through social media. So it's obviously resonating with people that this is a genuine issue, and it is a big issue for people.
Sure. And Claire, you said there, with your organisation, it's been around for 25 years now. With your experience, what can feeling unhappy about a person's body image lead onto?
Well, eating disorders specifically, and it's interesting in what Ed's just been mentioning, that actually we've noticed increasingly over the last few years the increase of service uptake, in particular with young people, and the comparisons they're making in terms of social media, which wasn't around when Careline initially started. Now, eating disorders are severe and complex mental health problems, and they have actually the highest mortality rate probably than any other psychiatric disorder. So it's a real cause for concern.
And how would someone access support from your organisation? What's the pathway there?
There's various routes. We offer self-referral, so somebody can either get through to us either phoning us or through our website or through Facebook. They can fill in their own referral form. As soon as we receive that, we will contact that person and we will do what's called a triage assessment, just assessing what's happening for them over the phone, because we offer a stepped care pathway with our local CAMS team, our local adult community eating disorder service. So we explain that to the potential service user as why we're doing the triage, just to make sure that we are putting them into the right service.
Fantastic. And that's Luton based, and so people can contact you via
Bedford.
Luton and Bedford. Fantastic. Yes. That's great to know. And so Ed, I noticed when I was just looking up for around this topic that there was quite a number of different case studies on the Mental Health Foundation website, and one of the things that really struck me was that, and this just may be my ignorance, but I presume this would be predominantly a problem with younger people, maybe younger girls, for example. But actually what a lot of the case studies bore out was, for example, Mohammed's story, where he was an older male, and his concerns around body image. I don't know if you've seen any of those case studies. Is it something you could summarise for listeners that haven't seen them?
Yeah, I mean, like you say, the stereotype, and with some accuracy, the main group of people who are really badly affected by this does tend to be sort of teenage girls and young women, but it affects all different kinds of people. And so we wanted to talk to people we've been in contact with from different age groups and ethnicities and walks of life about their experience of their body image. And as you say, one of them is a guy called Mohammed, who is of Asian origin, in his 60s, and he talked to us about how, even as an older man, the perceptions of him by other people were not the same as how he felt about himself. So he enjoyed playing football and staying physically active, and he told us that, when he would go on the five-side pitch, sometimes people, the younger guys, would look at him like, "What are you doing here?" as if an older guy doesn't belong on a football pitch.
Sure.
But he did say, once he'd scored a hat-trick against most of these teams, they had some respect for him. But also he talked about how him, as someone from, from the Indian subcontinent, where traditionally family is incredibly important, and that some people in his own community thought he didn't really have any business going around playing football. He should just be concentrating and spending all his time with his family. So not strictly speaking a body image issue, but it was quite an interesting kind of cultural issue that it wouldn't have occurred to me as a kind of white British guy. But I thought that was interesting that he had to overcome this feeling that, why are you messing around playing football? You should be concentrating on your kids and your grandkids. But actually, staying physically fit, playing football was important to him, and important in the way he perceived himself and his body. So I just thought it was quite an interesting case study of how different people have different issues around this in a way that we might not immediately kind of appreciate if we just look at it from our own perspective.
Sure. And is that something, Jolel, like through, working with faith groups and stuff, is something that you kind of recognise locally?
Yeah, yes. There's normally a misconception, mainly. It's to do with, say, how you would put communities together and just, have one type of approach in one way. So, there's a clear difference between, British, Pakistani, and Pakistani of like someone who's come from Pakistan, because they'd have. But I think the key thing for us is that we're finding is, even with ethnic minorities and faith groups particularly, that it comes back to the socioeconomic stuff, poverty, unemployment, education, and the whole conversation around, describing people into certain groups.
Yeah.
It's a big smokescreen. That's what we're finding. Okay. Because when we're doing the research, and when we're working with, actually, the issues are very similar. And it doesn't matter where you're from, but what actually is one of the biggest factors is around education, unemployment. That's what the two things. And then you've got housing, and then you've got discrimination. So all of these things are the actual underlying why people might why people might have ill health, just as your physical health was your mental health. But because they're being banded in these groups, it's giving off a different, different perception about or perceiving these people in a different way. That's one thing we're finding. But that's what happens when you do on the ground work. When you actually go and talk to people, you think actually the issues that you face are not much different to other parts of the community or other parts of towns and places in the UK.
Yeah, and so this is a community station, and this show is live, and the reason we do that is so people can interact. So why not? And you can do that by calling us on 01582 481 822, or you can text or WhatsApp on 07779 481 822. That number again, 07779 481 822. I mean, that's really interesting in terms of obviously your experience and knowledge of working on the ground, as you say, and some of those smokescreen, as you put it, in relation to some of the core issues around people who have more higher levels. Yeah, I think we all do it. Look, I'm not saying it's just professionals and authorities that do it. It's also us. We hide behind cultures and flags to hide actually the serious issues that we face. Okay, and so one of the things, Ed, that came out of the of your publication was a desire not just to write a report, but to actually provide some practical tips for people for looking after themselves. Is that something you can elaborate on?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you ever heard of 5 ways to well-being, but we actually have a 10 ways to well-being. We've improved it by 100%. So, I mean, and they're all based on scientific research.
Sure.
When I describe them, you'll hear they sound really commonsensical.
Mm.
You know, this isn't like rocket science. This is common sense stuff. So
Yeah.
the
Ed,
first
just
one
before you continue, I'm just conscious, apologies. We're due to be heading shortly to an advert break. So rather than get you going and then have to cut you off midway, I'm going to suggest if you could just hold fire with us. We're going to go to the advert break and then we're going to pick that up again. Is that okay?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you very much for that. And so, Jolel, we've got 20 seconds to the advert break. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
I'd say, just keep on listening to the rest of the show and you'll find lots more
That's good
interesting
advice.
debates. Yes.
I like that. Absolutely. No, please do stay with us. As I say, if you want to get in touch, you can do that. 01582 481 822. Text or WhatsApp 07779 481 822. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
You're listening to an Inspire FM podcast, making available our popular programs from our daily broadcast on Inspire FM.
Assalamu alaikum to all listeners and viewers. Welcome back to the Health and Fitness Show. I'm your host for today, Suliman Rafiq, broadcasting live from the studios here at Inspire FM. Today's the 16th of May, and inshallah, I hope you're all having a wonderful Ramadan. And it's truly flying away with us, and you're all benefiting from today's show. Apologies there, Ed. We had to go for a short break. I'd just like to bring you back in terms of practical advice for people to support themselves.
Yeah, of course, no worries. So, yes, as I say, we have kind of 10 ways to well-being that we talk about that's based on the scientific evidence, but as you'll hear, they're also kind of common sense things that probably most people do anyway, but it's good to think about which one of these you do and rely on and which one of these maybe you could do some more of. So the first one is talking about your feelings. Not to stereotype people, but women tend to be better at this than men. So men out there, you need to talk about your feelings sometimes and genuinely connect with each other and not just say, how are you doing? Yeah, I'm fine. We need to actually talk about stuff. Keeping active, physically active, that is really important. Doesn't mean you have to go to the gym, but like sort of build it into your day. Try and walk as much as possible. Use the stairs rather than a lift, things like that for those who are able. Eating well. I'm guessing the next one, which is about drinking alcohol sensibly, is probably less relevant to most of your listeners who are I think, mostly of Muslim faith, and therefore alcohol not such a big thing. Keep in touch with people, especially your loved ones. Those of us whose family members are further away from us, we need to stay in touch and keep connected. That's really good for our mental health. Ask for help. There's no shame in asking for help. At first that could just be from family and friends, but if you feel like it's too much of a problem to handle, you should try and seek professional help or help from the kind of voluntary sector agencies that you've got on the show today. Take a break. We all kind of can work too hard. It's important to take a break. Do something you're good at. Accept who you are. Sometimes, my son thinks he's going to be a Premiership footballer. Maybe he will. I hope so. But, we can't always get to where we dreamt that we might be. And therefore, it's really important that we accept we're doing okay and that even if we're not a Hollywood actor or a Premiership footballer, that's okay for us. And the last one is caring for others. Not only is that good for the people or the pets or whatever that we're caring for, but that's also really good for our mental health and our community. So like I say, they're all based on scientific evidence, but I think most of your listeners would probably agree they're commonsensical things that they probably do most of them anyway. But I think if all of your listeners think about maybe one or two of those they could improve on, then we all might enjoy better mental health. And if they can't remember what I just said, just look up the Mental Health Foundation website and they are on there.
Fantastic. Thank you for that, Ed. And just had a specific question in from a listener in relation to, and this is open to any one of our free guests. What is the best way to support someone, friends or family, that you recognize has body dysmorphia?
Yeah, don't jump in all at once. So.
Well, I mean, I'm not an expert in body dysmorphia.
I mean, what is body dysmorphia?
Well, body dysmorphia is where that you perceive something about your body that may not be physically the case. So you may think that you are hugely overweight, for example, when actually you're of a perfectly, from an objective point of view, are a perfectly reasonable weight, and that people have their perceptions kind of bent by maybe looking at too many kind of supposedly beautiful pictures of models and saying, well, I don't look like that, so therefore I must be disgustingly fat, when they're actually a perfectly reasonable body shape. And so it's about the difference between the objective reality of a person's body and how they perceive it in their own mind. And of course, our perceptions in our own minds of things is really, really key to our understanding of the world and our place in it. And so this is not a trivial matter. This can be really fundamental to someone's good mental health and their feelings about themselves. So I think if someone is feeling that way and they express that a lot, and it is a concern for a friend or a relative, then it's probably important to try and get them some professional help. And usually the first step to that is talking to the family doctor, the GP, or looking up. There's lots of advice available online from various charities and voluntary sector. I mean, you have to be slightly careful online because obviously there's all kinds of things online, some of which is good and some of which is not good. So you want to make sure it's a reputable charity, because there are some websites that actually kind of promote anorexia and other negative things, so you need to be slightly careful looking online. But yeah, I would say seek help and advice from a reputable source, either online or via your GP, or you can go in your library or your Citizens Advice Bureau and ask where local services that are appropriate for that person would be my advice.
Great, fantastic. Thank you very much for that. And just in terms of Jolel, practical tips, is there anything else? I mean, Ed gave 10 great ones.
Yeah, I mean, if I'd say the key thing is, most people, the people that we help, don't go to GP services, and that's why we have to make sure our infrastructure is well informed around mental health education. So in our case will be, particularly faith groups or places of worship, where the ability to have that conversation in a confidential space will require the other person require some training, so understanding about body dysmorphia or whatever mental health condition in that sense. Now, how faith connects to it, there's lots of guidance in any of the scriptures across different faiths about how you should go about your day and how you should go about your conduct and value things which are important. Now, believe it or not, that actually physical appearance is actually not that important, but physical hygiene is really important in that sense, just to keep yourself safe, really. So I think when you're thinking about body dysmorphia, and you're going to places of worship, like say, for example, a mosque, think about what the actual guidance is trying to tell you around. Okay, well, what is the guidance for you to go about your appearance? And the big thing is around hygiene. So making sure that you've washed, not excessively, of course, within moderation. If you're in sort of like prayer, then you're in constant ablution. If you have access to certain materials, and also not to be judgmental of others. That's the key bit, and not to be judgmental of yourself. These are the things that the guidance is telling you about how you should conduct yourself. And when you do that, you move away from the physical appearance and you start to focus on the emotional and the mental side to you, and also the spiritual side, which is what you would approach your character in the first place.
Sure, that's interesting concept. So Ed, I'm just conscious, do you have to leave us? I think originally it was till 6:30. We've kept you for a bit longer than that. Or are you able to stay on?
Well, I'm happy to stay on for a bit.
Fantastic.
I can hear my kids running around downstairs. They suddenly burst in.
No
and,
problem, no worries. I've often had that experience working from home. That's really kind of you. Claire, I just want to bring you in now and really focus on your kind of expertise in relation to what to do if you suspect like a friend or relative is struggling with an eating disorder, and how would you approach something like that?
Okay, I think that's a really good question because with eating disorders, initially it might not be visible, and it's not always visible because there's various sorts of eating disorders that somebody is living with an eating disorder. But if you suspect that somebody you care about, whether it's a friend or relative, is having difficulties in terms of an eating disorder, often the first stage of that is the person who has eating disorder is in denial, if you like.
Right.
So actually, I think what's helpful to look at is what not to do and what to do. So when you care about somebody and you're seeing that they're not eating properly or they're exercising excessively, and that person might be consistently seeking reassurance around whether they're slim or whether they look fat, as a carer and somebody cares, you're going to reassure them that you're going to want to say, no, you're not fat, you're not slim. But actually what we know is reassurance doesn't work, because if it did, then you don't need to say it that one time.
Right.
Yeah. So I think the key thing is to say, because you've got to think about readiness, is to be able to approach them and to say, I care about you, and I've noticed this, and it's causing some concern. They might open up at that point, or they might not. But you could also say, look, I've just left some information here for you to have a look at in your own time, of places that might be helpful for you to go and talk to someone, whether that be go to your GP, whether it be contact Careline. What's really key is not to force them. And it's also okay to say, I might not understand what's going on for you, because people don't understand if they're not living with it. And it's okay to say, I don't understand what's going on for you, but I am happy to listen. You know, that kind of feeds into what Ed was saying, wasn't it, about being able to speak out and to share how you're feeling, or encourage someone to share how they're feeling. And just by having somebody listen to them and know that they're not going to be forced into anything they don't want to do, then you're more likely to be able to engage that person and get them into some kind of support. But the key things not to do is comment on their weight and say to them, what a waste. You know, often people say that, it's such a waste of food, and there's people starving in different countries, and that's just not going to work. What's likely to happen is that person's likely to isolate themselves more.
Right.
And can I just say something else? I know it's jumping back a bit in terms of body dysmorphic disorder.
Yeah, please do.
In terms of what your listener asked, I think what's really important, because often sometimes people confuse body dysmorphic disorder and eating disorders. They are quite different. Now, I'm not an expert in body dysmorphic disorder, but what we do know in terms of evidence-based and research-based approach with body dysmorphic disorder, it's very effective if they work with a CBT approach, and it could be, and it might not be about weight, for instance, whereas we know with eating disorders it's very much focused on evaluation of self based on shape and weight and its control. And body dysmorphic disorder, it could be about a particular part of their body, like eyes, for instance, or their nose, and some people might not even leave the house because they're spending 8 hours putting on eye makeup. So there is a difference, and it just feels important to to say that, because there could
Yeah.
be some confusion.
No,
Is that
absolutely.
okay?
Yeah, no, that's really helpful to be clearing on kind of our definitions, and
What's different?
absolutely, and the differences there, absolutely, and just thank you to the listener who messaged in with that. Just a reminder to anyone listening that they can get in touch, and they can do that by calling us on 01582 481 822. Otherwise, you can WhatsApp or text us on 07779 481 822. And just continuing with that, Claire, in relation to eating disorders, I mean, can you kind of define what you mean when you say eating disorder and what causes eating disorders?
Okay, there's no one single thing that causes an eating disorder. But what we know there are some common elements. There could be some previous trauma, an adverse event, whether that's bereavement or some form of abuse, but this is not always the case. Okay, but what we do know with eating disorders, whatever presentation, now most people have heard of anorexia nervosa, most people have heard of bulimia nervosa, but actually there's several other forms of eating disorders. Binge eating disorders not otherwise specified, but that's also now been changed to OSFED, but it kind of means the same thing. And what they all have in common is the person's evaluation of themselves is placed mainly on their shape and weight and its control. So the behaviours that they present are trying to control shape and weight. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So restriction, like under-eating or restraint eating, avoidance of certain foods and compensating if they eat those foods, is to drive that strong hold of themselves in terms of their shape and weight.
And what kind of keeps that going then for a person, for like a
Well,
system?
what maintains that is things like under-eating, so restriction, hunger, because they're under-eating because they want to remain at in some cases unhealthy weight, or to think that it's going to affect their weight. If they feel they've eaten too much, they may compensate by excessive exercise, self-induced vomiting, and other ways as a form of weight control. They may excessively weigh. They may body check, which includes mirror checking, comparison making, which we've talked about earlier, is a big one. Body touching or body avoidance, even depending on what presentation. All of those are problematic, and all of those maintain and keep the eating disorder going. So what you would try to do as a professional working with somebody with an eating disorder is look at trying to break those down, break that down, so that kind of evaluation of self based on shape and weight eventually starts to tumble down, because it marginalises other areas of their life. If everything they're focusing on is their shape, weight and its control, then it's minimising other parts of their life. So they socially, they kind of isolate themselves. Could you imagine just being asked to go out for dinner if you're suffering from an eating disorder, or going out socially with friends and worrying about calories, etc.? That all keeps that going by avoidance, etc. So that's the kind of thing you'd be working with.
Now that's really interesting, and it's amazing the work that you're doing, in Luton and Bedfordshire to support people around this, and have been doing so for the last 25 years. Given the severity of the issue, I mean, Jolel, I just want to bring you in here in terms of you spoken earlier in regards to faith groups. So we might have listeners now who are members of faith groups, might lead faith groups, etc. What's the advice for faith groups around body image and in connection to mental health? How can they support people?
They share a common ground. When we say faith groups, we mean also people who might not belong to a particular religion. It can be just humanists, people who work not just for money, but because they want to help people because of their values and ethics. So, it does apply to them as well. I think there's a lot of common ground, especially around actually what's important. Is it important to look good? So when you're young, and you might get a compliment if you're a young child, whatever. Oh, that looks very nice on you. Oh, that looks very good on you. So there's lots of to do with reinforcement about compliments. Instead of to say, actually, that's very compassionate of you. That's very kind of you. We should be doing that. And a lot of these organisations, they should be having this type of discussion to say, actually, when we're talking about body image or appearance, that actually when it's being done from a young age, we're being conditioned in that particular way. So when we compliment, that red dress looks nice on you, or that blue looks good on you, that kind of behaviour, what it does, it conditions the child to become an adult, to be concerned about the image. But if we did what faith groups or faith communities, which emphasise in the guidance to say we should reward or pass compliments on behaviours, to say that's very kind of you, or caring of you, well done. I think if you reinforce that would have an impact. So it's actually listening to a bit of intelligence and just going back to the basics here and say, look, what is all the faith guidance are trying to teach us about civilization.
Yeah. So just to be clear then, so what we're saying is we shouldn't spend so much with children, not spend so much time praising them for how they look, but more how they behave. Have I understood that?
Yeah, like, the big and strong thing, that's another one for men, reinforces that. So I think you have to, scratch beyond the surface and go right deep and say, look, what's causing all these issues? We can't just deal with the symptoms of the problem and just keep going back and repairing the paper cracks, that kind of thing. You have to go back and say, right, what's the foundation? What's holding all this up? Yeah. Address the foundation and then build it properly. Yeah, and so like Ed mentioned there, Mental Health Foundation's been around for 70 years. Obviously, there's been a raft of coverage this week, on TV and across various different media. But yet there still seems to be a stigma attached to mental health and discussing it. I mean, particularly within the kind of Muslim community. What are your thoughts on that, Jolel? It does exist everywhere. I think what it does, because of discrimination, because some people will get treated differently, and they do, and that's one of the things we're going to target and we're going to sort out. Therefore, it increases the stigma. We don't want to talk about it because what it does, it becomes, a focus on you, and you don't want to deal with that on your own. So therefore, you start to become isolated, and that increases the stigma. Where if everybody was sharing, like Mental Health Foundation, done some great work over the years, we're just starting to have that conversation across all communities. Then what we do, we improve the confidence enabled around this type of topic, and also how to discuss things when things go wrong. To actually say it's quite normal. With Muslims in particular, what we can do is look at places of worship to say, well, how do we have that conversation, and what does our faith tell us in terms of actually, yes, look at the conduct and the ethics and the values and the behaviors. Then you can start to tackle the stigma, and then you start to address the discrimination.
Sure. And so locally, you mentioned Time for Change Luton, and there's opportunities for people and faith groups to become champions and join the network. Is that right?
Yes, so basically it's a national campaign. It's Time to Change, and we brought this campaign into the town, just like when we promoted Mental Health Awareness Week, which was coordinated by Mental Health Foundation. So we're bringing in evidence-based products and campaigns to say, look, these are the quality things that you should pay attention. They're really good, they're effective, and they work. So this champions network that we've got quite a few in Newton, but we want people to join the campaign, because the only real change is if everyone gets involved. It's not going to happen if it's just me and you. And this is an example of bringing the discussion onto a community radio station. That's a clear example.
Fantastic. So if there are any listeners who would be interested in becoming champions, what do they need to do?
The best things to do is go onto the website. That's timetochange.org.uk. Sign up as a champion. You'll get an email with further instructions on how to become a champion. You can do whatever you want, and they'll give you all the resources and the support that you need. So therefore, it's very, very consistent.
Fantastic. I'm just conscious the time is getting away with us. Ed, are there any kind of final reflections you'd like to share?
Yeah, I just reflecting on what was just the discussion about faith groups, and I think they're really important in this. And I know a number of examples. Sounds like you're doing some great work in Luton. I live in Lambeth in South London. I know that in the neighbouring borough of Wandsworth, there's a Muslim guy called Malik Gul who runs something called the Wandsworth Community Empowerment Network, and he's reached out to local faith groups, so mosques, black churches in particular, and Sikh temples and people like that, and then he connects them with the local mental health trust and gives training to faith leaders about how to recognise and support people with mental health conditions, and then he introduces those faith leaders to people who can provide professional clinical help when they need it. And that way you're kind of respecting the community and its leaders, and you're bringing them into professional support when individuals in that community need it. And I think that's the kind of respectful dialogue we need to have, rather than kind of stereotype people, but just trying to work and respect people's different backgrounds and cultures and learn from each other. And I think there are ways of doing that are really important. And I just think it's really positive that you've invited us all on, and it sounds like you're doing some fantastic work in Luton. And I just think it's another sign that we're really making progress in raising awareness, breaking down stigma and taboos. That, as I say, mental health, we all have mental health. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. Sometimes people get ill, and just like you'd ask for help when you had a physical illness, if you got a rash or flu or cancer or something, you would go to a doctor. That sometimes that's necessary for mental illness, but there are things that we can do to look after our mental health just as we do our physical health. So
Fantastic.
We're on a journey, and we're making good progress.
Fantastic. Ed, thank you very much for your time. We've literally got 20 seconds left. Claire, have you got any final words?
I just want to say it's just fantastic to have the opportunity to be part of this radio interview, and also to say in Luton that clearly there is good work going on, because we've noticed an increase in service uptake from the Asian community, and we also
fantastic. Thank you. Thank you very much for hopefully we'll have you all back on soon.
Love that.
We're going straight to our advertisement breaks.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. Why not tune in to our live stream at inspirefm.org and follow and subscribe to our social media platforms at Inspire FM Luton.